So Nancy Pelosi is now waiting on the Republicans to pass a new infrastructure bill. And this is sadly not good news for many of us, because if Congress does not approve this bill before the end of the month, then the government will shut down. And when the government does shut down, folks, just remember that Social Security benefits might not be sent out. And of course, our fourth stimulus checks are going to be delayed. I want to see President Biden must do his job and keep his promise to the American people by avoiding a government shutdown and of course helping us out with more stimulus payments.
All right, people said, nobody, Bernie's a nice guy or he's not a nice guy, but his ideas don't make sense to anybody. Now, 4 years ago, I want you to remember the ideas that I talked about, which were seemed to be crazy and radical. I said that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. We should raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour.
As I said, Nancy Pelosi said that the House will vote Thursday on the $1 trillion infrastructure plan. And this is as the future of President Biden's sweeping economic agenda currently remains uncertain. The vote is set to come as Nancy Pelosi works to unite wings of the Democratic Party on both the infrastructure bill and, of course, the $3.5 trillion social and environmental package. That's all as Congress works to stave off a lapse in government funding by Thursday and hitting the debt limit in October. Pelosi, along with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and senior White House officials, have spent the weekend working to make an agreement on the social and environmental package.
And billionaires.
As well as middle-class people.
Well, we know 65% of that tax break went to the top 10%. What Joe Biden has done is give the biggest middle-class tax break with the child tax credit. This is math. It's not complicated.
Haven't we seen enough negotiations in Congress? After all, it's been a very long time since the third stimulus checks were sent out. President Biden said he wants to help out the American people and get the economy rolling. So what he needs to do is send out the fourth stimulus check as soon as possible. So far, Congress has been unable to strike a deal between progressives and moderate Democrats on the top line figure for the social and environmental bill. Pelosi had committed last month to the original Monday deadline for the infrastructure, and Biden spoke with lawmakers over the weekend on the path forward for his economic agenda. Upon arrival at the White House on Sunday, President Biden expressed optimism about negotiations and acknowledged that it's going to take the better part of the week to get this bill done. President Biden is always talking about acting fast and acting immediate, so he has to do what's right and send out more stimulus payments and get this infrastructure bill passed. Do you guys agree?
You have the whole notion of being able to provide for daycare for your children, getting people back to school, etc. It's all paid for.
And a White House official told reporters that, building on the progress from last week, the president spoke with members about the path forward. There was also extensive work on the staff level. So throughout Sunday, Democrats had signaled the infrastructure bill might not happen. Pramila Jayapal, the leader of the House Progressives, said there simply are not enough votes for the party to pass the infrastructure bill right now. And key moderate Representative Josh Gottheimer conceded the vote would likely occur early next week. Pelosi acknowledged earlier she wouldn't bring the measure for a vote, knowing it would fail. Pelosi said we'll bring the bill forward tomorrow for consideration, but that she's never going to bring a bill to the floor that does not have the votes. Now the House Progressives has said that they will not vote for the separate infrastructure package, unless it is accompanied by the much larger social bill. And it's named by the administration as the Build Back Better plan, which of course might include fourth stimulus payments. Pramila Jayapal has also said for days that her members will not vote on the $1 trillion bill without passing the $3.5 trillion package, which is aimed at passing President Biden's economic agenda. And so far, none of the Democrats have offered much clarity on the broader negotiations over the social safety net plan. And this will make major new investments in childcare, healthcare, education, and climate change. But if you still have not received one of your stimulus checks, just know this: you may still be able to receive your money. The IRS recently released new deadline dates to facilitate late filers applying and being eligible for these benefits. If you requested to file an extension on your 2020 tax return, you might still be eligible to receive child tax credit payment money. The IRS issued a press release stating that those who file and have their 2020 return processed by November 1st, you may be eligible for the next 2 monthly advance payment.
The default would be, in the words of Secretary Yellen, catastrophic. The best case scenario is the best case under this awful situation is that our country would fall into another recession, potentially erasing all the progress we have made to pull ourselves out of the crisis. That is, if we're lucky. Otherwise, one analysis warned that default could hurt Americans for generations. For generations. Interest costs will be higher and not go down very quickly. And that has huge effects on so many different people, and that's only one of the effects of default. So I want my Republican colleagues to think carefully about the practical consequences of what they're doing. A default means, quite simply, the government cannot pay its bills. It means that suddenly the government is presented with unimaginable options. Do they tell seniors they won't get their Social Security checks, or veterans that they won't see their benefits, or tell our military they won't be getting paid? And the consequences on Main Street would be equally severe. A default would very likely send markets crashing and interest rates skyrocketing, making it harder for small businesses to make ends meet, for homeowners and renters to pay the bills, and for consumers to keep our economy going. All of the consequences, or so many of the consequences, can be boiled down into three frightening numbers: 6 million, 9, 15 trillion. 6 million jobs lost, 9% unemployment, 15 trillion in squandered household wealth. Let me say that again. Those are devastating numbers on so.
So, Madam President, the Democratic leader is scheduled to vote today that he knows will fail. For more than 2 months, since July, Republicans have been clear about where we stand. We're willing to work together to keep the government open. We're not willing to help Democrats raise the debt ceiling while they write a reckless taxing and spending spree of historic proportions behind closed doors. Democrats control the entire government, the Senate, the House, the White House. They intend to sideline Republicans and go it alone to slam American families with historic tax hikes and borrowing. So they will need to raise the debt limit on a partisan basis as well. And they've known that for 2 months now. 2 months. Just like then, Senator Biden and Senator Schumer voted no on a debt limit increase and made a unified Republican government handle it alone back in the early 2000s. This has happened before. Earlier this year, Senate Democrats requested and won additional flexibility to make policy on party lines. They have every single tool they need to do their job. The Democratic leader